Everything that's going on.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. We're running a little late. I think the wrong link was set up, but it doesn't matter because the extraordinary Gish Jen is here. We're going to be talking about her book, Bad Girl, which is absolutely fabulous. Just a few housekeeping things. You will all notice it's on my right, there's a whole long chat. Gish, you don't have to do anything about that. I'm just going to look at it, and if anybody asks you a question, I'll repeat it to you. I've put up links for your books so they can all buy it. And I would love anybody who's out there, if you have comments or questions, pop them in the chat and we'll get to them. Also, we'd like everybody to please buy your books from independent bookstores. If you don't have one that you love, we recommend bookshop.org, and that'll get you right there. So I am so completely thrilled to have Gish Jen here. I've loved your books for forever. And this book this is the highest compliment I have for any book. It broke me in the best possible way. It's just fabulous. So let me introduce Gish, and then we'll let her talk. Gish Jen's work has been included in the Best American Short Stories 5 times, including in the Best American Short Stories of the Century. She's a fellow of both the American Academy of Arts and Letters and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. She's received NEA, Guggenheim, and Radcliffe fellowships, a Lannan Literary Award, and a 5-year Mildred and Harold Strauss Living Award. Her short work has appeared in The New Yorker, The Atlantic Monthly, The New York Times, and many others. She's taught at Harvard and more. Bad Girl is her 10th book. Previous novels, which are equally as stupendous, include Typical American, Who's Irish, World in Town, Love Wife, Tiger Writing, The Girl at Baggage Claim, The Registers. Thank you, Mr. Nixon. Okay, so Bad Girl it's part memoir, it's part fiction. It's about Gish and her mom. She's the bad girl, the woman who had the misfortune to be born a smart girl in a wealthy Shanghai family where girls were expected to be quiet and leave the magic to boys. As the communist revolution begins, Gish's mother goes to America to get her PhD. But when Gish is born, it's Miss Jen now who is the bad girl. The amazing thing about this book is that, like many of us, Jen Gish had a fractious relationship with her mom. Her mom was a stubborn woman who never said, "I love you." And in Bad Girl, Gish tries to find out the reason why. So welcome so much, Gish Jen. I'm so thrilled to have you here at the Blaze. We all are.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Well,
and can you hear me? Is it working?
Yes, it's working perfectly, and you are perfect. So let me get to the questions. Oh, I want to read some of the reviews. This book was the best reviewed book of any book in the stratosphere. From Juno Diaz, what a fucking amazing novel. Wild like love and twice as revealing. Gish Jen has written the multi-generational mother-daughter epic of our new century. And that's not all. There's more. Transcendent, the Boston Globe. Heart-piercingly personal, the LA Time. The Washington Post. Sweeping demographic change enlarges Bad Girl, sweetened by comic touches and a final note of grace. WBUR. In forthright and profound ways, Jen sought the most difficult path to understand extraordinary. NPR, as moving and healing as they come. Minnesota Star Tribune. Nearly every page will have readers nodding in recognition. Kirkus Reviews starred. Great novelist distills the truth of her mother's life and her own. And the latest from the London Times, very, very good. Shocking, illuminating, and in places truly heartbreaking. So that's like with praise like that, it's amazing. So anyway, I want to know, this is the first of your many novels where you actually wrote about your mom, and it was after her death. I want to know, what was the inception about this, and why did you feel you had permission to write about her after her death and not during her life?
Well, it wasn't just a matter of permission. I mean, it wasn't like it wasn't like she was alive and I was wanting to write about her, but I felt that I couldn't. I think I'd so internalized the idea that I couldn't, that I was not even really aware of a desire to write about her.
Okay.
And so it really wasn't until she died of COVID, and I was sitting there, as I am wont to do, in front of my computer every day, realizing that I really couldn't work, that I started to kind of to write to her. And my mother, being herself, of course, started to write back. And
I love that.
yeah, well, that's my mother. And and then I started to try to, this is sort of the beginning of my trying to really try to understand her, and I wanted to I wanted to tell her story from the beginning. And I will say too that some papers had, emerged after her death that gave me a very different idea about her. So I sat down to write my book from the beginning, and it was interesting. One of the purposes of writing this book was not just for myself, but really for my children who had also not had a very good relationship with her.
Interesting. Okay.
And so I wanted to explain her, but when I wrote it just as straight memoir, I found that they had a reaction, a sympathetic reaction, but not a very strong sympathetic reaction, and because she left so few effects. We had so little to go on. It was really very dry. It's factual and dry, and that's when I sort of got the idea. Well, let me try this as fiction, and I tried the very beginning. So the very first thing that happens to my mother that I know of is that she has her nursemaid summarily fired when she is 7. This is a woman to whom she was far closer than she was to her mother. It was her mother, and she's just
Right.
suddenly one
Right.
day, my mother just comes out and she's gone. And when I first told that story to my kids, they were like, "Oh, wow, that's terrible," But when I tried it as fiction, when I actually, in truth, we know nothing about this nursemaid. We don't know her name. We don't know anything about
That's
her.
incredible.
Yeah, well, of course we don't, but anyway,
Yeah.
but when I made up a nursemaid, such as a little girl might love, I made up a nursemaid. I made up a little girl that the girl I imagined my mother might have been, very rambunctious. I drew in some scenes, right? I drew in some secondary characters. And when I did that and I showed it again to my children, and when the nursemaid is fired, then they were moved, And then that's when I got the idea that I say, oh, I see. The way into this story, because there's a little of it really for a memoir, is through fiction. And of course, once you decide that you're just going to fictionalize, then you have a lot of license to do a lot of things. And it solved a lot of problems. I'm sure you have a lot of writers on this program. But one of the perennial problems is how to get, if you have a lot of historical background, as I do in this book, like a lot, like all of 20th century Chinese history, right? Like that's like a lot. How do you get that in without completely swamping your narrative, right? And how do you bring it home? Well, once I decided to fictionalize, I realized, well, okay, well then I have given myself permission, to monkey with the family letters,
I love the family letters.
Yeah, I did, but I have to caution you. A lot of the stuff, especially the stuff that is actually informing, you might realize is actually from which you are learning something about what's going on. That's fiction. In real life, my family was extremely guarded. I mean, extremely so. They knew that they were under scrutiny, and they were extremely careful, so careful that you would never know that there was a great famine going on. I mean, even as I convey it, it's mostly jokes about how much winter cabbage they have to eat. They don't go on like, oh my God, everyone is starving. They don't do that. But at least you have some sense of what it would have been to live in Shanghai at that time. And so I started. Yeah, but that's the novelist at work. So that's the fictionalizing. So if you want to know what's fiction, that stuff is fiction. And it helped me because there was the famine. There were all those purges of the upper classes, and by fictionalizing, I could use the letters to convey some of the terror that they felt,
Oh,
which they would they never would have indicated in any shape, way, or form. I had an idea of what other families did from some other family letters, so I kind of knew, what the range might be. So I wasn't saying things that like nobody would ever say in a letter, but I did say things that my family would never say in a letter, as a way of helping the reader. So that's, what I mean? This is where the fiction comes in. And this is where it's very helpful, if you're going to try to tell a very long, very complicated story.
mhm.
You can convey things more economically. You can streamline, you know.
It was
Um,
also it was also very, very funny at parts. There was one part where you're having a conversation with your mother, and it's obviously fiction because your mother starts saying something. You say, "Ma, don't give away the plot." And it was so perfect because you really created her personality. Just jumps off the page when she's talking, and also like she's very, because she doesn't want you to write a book showing what a bad mom she is. And so much of this book is about generational trauma. And what I thought was so interesting is that you actually dared to have kids after all of this, and you did it differently, and you succeeded. How difficult was that to do that? Did you always hear your mother's voice in your head saying, "Don't do that with them, treat them a different way, or raise them a different way"?
I pretty much just, I just did everything the opposite of what she did, pretty much. That I didn't, I realized in retrospect that, I thought it was entirely natural, that we raised our children so differently. But later I realized that, I had really studiously avoided any kind of evaluative talk with my daughter. Even with my son, I was a little looser. I would say to him, "Oh, you bad boy." You know what I mean? He did something.
Oh, you said.
Not that he ever did. I mean, my son was a little, and I have to tell you that, my son's idea of being punished, like how we would punish my son, he was very nerdy, and his favorite thing in the world was a 3D puzzle of the Titanic. Now, my husband did this with him, and you could imagine what a saint my husband is, because all the pieces are gray and it's very large. And putting this thing together took forever.
Wow.
I know, but the two of them did it. But the idea, so when my son was naughty, what we did to punish him, we took his 3D Titanic puzzle and we put it on a high shelf where he couldn't reach it. I mean, that was the extent of, he was a very easy child. And, but with my daughter, we never said anything either that she was good or that she was bad, And later on, she did say, like, "Mom, like, you never told me." Like, she's actually, I have to say, my daughter is very smart. And she said, "Well, you never once said that, I was smart or anything like that."
Wow.
We didn't say she's stupid either. We just avoided anything like that, I realize now. She completely survived because, all her teachers are telling her how bright she was. She has not suffered. But, we were a little bit careful. You know what I mean? And we didn't, we just enjoyed her. We just really set out to enjoy her, and she was a very enjoyable child. So it was not hard, and we just didn't really, we never used any kind of labels on her. We just, like I say, we just enjoyed her.
I wanted to talk about the book.
We kind of left her alone. Yeah.
I want to talk about the book. Is so much about how we treat women. I mean, your mother could have been so much more. She seemed incredibly smart. And I was wondering how you felt her, if you felt that she resented you for your success, that it would have been easier for you if you had the exact same life as she had, because then she wouldn't have to feel bad at seeing an example of what she could have been. Did that factor into your relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it was the whole of our relationship, but it's definitely part of it. My mother was very smart, and she was told every day when she was growing up, "It's too bad you're a girl." which seems very tough. But of course, there's some truth to it. In 1930s China, there really wasn't a place for somebody like that. I mean, even today, they joke in China, that there are 3 genders. There are males, females, and female PhDs. Yuck, 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 right? I mean, they still say that's in 2025. So you can only imagine. And, and the sexism, I have to say, in China, we have sexism here, but the sexism in China is at a whole different order. I think that, I refer to, girls being drowned, when my mother was a child, which is true. But, even, I was just, a journalist friend of mine came to an event of mine in San Francisco. And I sort of said, so Mary Kay, so, what are the statistics, like today, And she said, well, in Shandong, not everywhere, but in Shandong province, which is in the Northeast, in the 1990s, there were 100 girls born to every 130 boys. That's in the 1990s.
Wow.
So, we're talking about a level of sexism, like I said, we have sexism here, but this is not like, you raised your hand and nobody called on you in class. This is a whole different thing. And so, the perception, my mother's perception that, and her parents' perception, that it was kind of a disaster or it was too bad that she was a girl, was not inaccurate, and probably their anxiety about whether anybody would marry her was probably justified, my poor mother. I mean, today I just feel like it really is. It's just criminal. It's just criminal. But then she comes to the United States, and even so, it's so hard being an immigrant. She is not able to get her PhD in the end. She really is not able to do any of the things that she was so clearly, able to do. And sure, I think that she did resent it, having this daughter who had all these opportunities that she didn't have. I don't think she's alone. I think there's a lot of women in that family.
Oh, I think there's a lot.
Yeah, we're very lucky. We're very, very lucky.
Yeah, I can remember when my older sister was going to college, there was a lot of talk about, well, you're going to college to get your MRS degree. Yes. That was the most important. Or if you were going to work, you had to take a job that was a hobby or that would allow you to stay home and cook and clean and do what you need to do for your husband. So it's still there. I want to talk about the genesis of your writing career. Would you say the first episode was, there's a charming thing in the book about you, and I believe her name was Mrs. Cunningham. She taught you how to crochet, and you sort of made stories about the things that you were crocheting. I was wondering, and it was fascinating that you fought against being a writer, that instead of this love of story, you became pre-med and then business. So can you tell us, like, when those ideas of, being pre-med or business or what you should be fell away and you knew, what, I need to be a writer. That's who I am.
Yeah. First, I have to tell you that Mrs. Cunningham is fictional.
Okay. Oh no! Oh, I'm so disappointed.
I know. But she's kind of the embodiment of all the people who helped me. I mean, in other words, this is where it's helpful. And instead of saying, like, in second grade, this one helped me, in third grade, this one helped me. Right. She's kind of the embodiment of all of them, and a kind of a love letter to all of them. And there was a woman in the Dead End who did teach me to crochet and to knit and crochet. And I did make up a lot of stories about the things that I was making. I love it. But this character who also talks about Little Women and, and other things. So she is fictional. But like I say, she embodies all the many people who have stepped forward for me. And because people sort of say, how is it that, basically you're not a heroin addict? I mean, really, with my mother, I should be like on the street, just miserable. And how is it that, I'm out in the world, fully functional? Yeah. How is that? And that is thanks to so many people who step forward for me. I mean, many people, right up to the present day. So I'm very lucky that way. But then when I got to college, even though I had taken a class and even though I'd had a professor say to me, you should really be a writer, And before that, I was pre-law, I was pre-med, I was pre-everything, And that's just that, I have to say it was 1970, this is 1976, 1977. I was at Harvard. And if you had polled the Harvard Asian American students at that point, I think you would discover that almost 100% of them were pre-professional. I would say the vast majority were pre-med. A couple of people were pre-law. That was actually kind of unusual. But I mean, so this whole idea that people like me, went into a profession of that kind was, it was just a given. People like we didn't ask ourselves, like, what would we really like to do? No one had ever asked us, and we never asked ourselves.
That's right.
It was just the way things were. But in my case, I took this class with Robert Fitzgerald, the translator, and Robert Fitzgerald felt very strongly that I should do something with words. That's because I had written this paper for him about prose rhythms and Henry James, and he thought that I had a good ear. Also, I was writing poetry for his class, and he loved my poetry. I'd never written anything like that before. But from the get-go, I wrote my first poem in Kuntalan syllables. He handed it out to the class. And he really thought that I should be a poet. I was like, a poet? People like me should be a poet, But he did get me off the pre-med, pre-law thing, which was not so hard since I got like a C+ in chemistry. I was not very good at it. And but he got me my first job in publishing. He said, if you're not going to be a writer, you should at least go into publishing. And in the way that Harvard professors could back then, he just called up, his editor and said, give her a job. And I know it doesn't happen so much today, but no. But back in the 70s, that's Harvard professors could do that if they liked you. And Fitzgerald did that for me. He called up and he said, I have this student, hire her. And so I got this job. And so slowly, luckily, when I was at Doubleday, you could take courses on the Doubleday dime, any kind of course you wanted. You could take anywhere in New York. Yeah. So
that doesn't happen now either.
No. So anyway, I took classes in writing at the New School. And the same thing happened where this is another writing teacher that was absolutely gaga. He was very much like, you were the best student I've ever had, and I was just like, what?
Incredible.
I had no idea what he was. I'm like, I don't know what you were talking about, But anyway, and because I had a couple of these guys, kind of basically say, have you thought about being a writer?
Wow.
So I did still enroll at Stanford Business School. But the minute I got there, I guess I thought I could make myself do something practical, but I really couldn't. And the minute I got there, I knew I was entirely the wrong place. I had actually gone to Stanford because I knew they had a good writing program. And so sure enough, I spent my first year of business school. I read 100 novels and I was taking writing courses across the street. That's all I did was read and write.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah. And the second year, I was supposed to go to class, but, somehow I overslept the first class, then I overslept the second class, I overslept the third class. But at the end of the week, it was clear I was never going to class. So I took a leave of absence and I never went back. Instead I went to China and then I went to Iowa. Yeah.
That's so great. The thing about this
I don't recommend this way to anybody else.
Well, it would be really hard now. The thing about this book is that, your mother she was not particularly loving to you. She never said, I love you. She seemed to resent you. But the thing about this book is that we still can't stop reading about her because we know her past. It's like we know how she got that way. Your mom didn't write to her mom, even when the Red Guards were rampaging through the country. And you asked her if she was sorry that she held on to her anger, because she never wrote to her mother, even after, her mother died before she even got a word for her. And your mom was silent. And that part of the book just sort of broke me. Because I I could understand her and feel compassion for her, even though I, and I'm sure many other readers, feel, why was she like that? How could she be like that? Why would she do that? But yet we understand because of the past. We really understand because of the past. So do you write to your mother now, even though she's dead? Do you still have conversations with her, Ed? And what does she say to you now with the publication of this book?
The funny thing is that, yeah, I have stopped talking to my mother. And I don't hear so much, even though I'm sure in heaven she hates
wow.
But I think, and also let me just say, it's a very noisy time of life because of pub. I mean, it is very, very, very busy. And, so I barely have time to brush my teeth, much as anything else. So, but I really don't hear her so much, and
Okay.
I do actually hear my father, a little bit,
That's
and my father.
interesting.
Yeah, my father, always everything I did was right. It's funny with my mother, I could do no right. With my father, I could do no wrong. And I do hear my father's pride, and I do hear him saying, like, very good, which is what he would say. And for whatever reason, even though I if my mother were alive, she would be very unhappy about this book. She would be. She would be. But, there's a part of me that feels like, Mom, you would be very unhappy, but you would
Whatever
be
you
wrong.
did. And she would be wrong. That's right.
We'd be wrong because actually people feel great sympathy for you. And I only wish that in your life that you had believed that people, if they knew you, would love you, because that's what's happened. In my book, they know by knowing her, people love her. And
That's
I
right.
don't think she didn't believe that could happen. And I wish that, this is where we're so lucky, because we know that can happen, but she didn't believe that. And I only wish that I could tell her that actually people love you, warts and all. Warts and all. We don't have to clean you up and sentimentalize you for people to love you. People love you as you are, because you are a human with real things that you have struggled with.
That's right.
And things that, we don't know that we would have done any better than you did.
That's right. Under the same circumstances. I think that is what every single critic has remarked on, how universal this novel is. It touches everyone. Everyone I know who's read this book, we end up talking about our mothers. And it's absolutely true. We absolutely feel for her. I feel like what a remarkable woman she was, and how remarkable that you were able to grow up under that and become who you are. Now, was changing your name to Gish, did that help you at all? Did that make you feel like you were a different person?
Yeah, and now that you mention it, I'm sure that Lillian could not have read, my original name was Lillian Jen. And when I was in high school, I was in a creative writing club. And naturally, it was run by a guy, of course. And he gave us all names, and a friend of mine's last name was Houseman, so she became A.E. after A.E. Houseman, the poet. And because my name was Lillian, he named me Gish after Lillian Gish, the actress. I had no idea who Lillian Gish was at the time. And had I known that she was in A Birth of Nature, I don't think I would have accepted this name. But in any case, Gish was a name that, a couple of people used under very limited circumstances, right? And then I went away for some reason. I went away to a National Science Foundation summer dig, an archaeological dig in Clarion, Pennsylvania. And there was a big storm, and the building was hit by lightning, and the lights went down. And so there we were. I was away from home, and I was sitting in the dark. So we were introducing ourselves by candlelight. We're going around the circle. And they got to me, and with no premeditation, I said I was Gish Jen. I don't know what got into me. But now I see, of course, that was probably the first indication that I was going to be a writer, because, of course, Tennessee Williams, Jamaica Kincaid, goes on and on and on. There are a gazillion people, right, who've been self-invented in just this way. And I didn't know that. I just did it, And, of course, Gish Jen, Lillian Jen was a nice Chinese girl, right? Who did all the things she's supposed to be
Gish Jen
doing.
is like, yeah, Gish is like a really
Gish Jen
interesting
was
name.
she was a whole different quantity, right? So she was, climbing out of windows at night and, doing who knows what. And I'm sure that it is that other wilder, less well-behaved self that wrote this book, that wrote all my books, and
It's
my
incredible.
mother did not like this Gish Jen, Gish Jen is not the daughter that she wanted to have, I'm the daughter she got stuck with.
What do you think she
You
thought
know,
would happen if she did accept you as the daughter?
I don't think she ever
That
thought
didn't
about
even
that.
didn't enter her mind?
I
Okay.
was just not the daughter she wanted, I just
Wow.
wasn't. And it's a little bit like if I know for people who have like just parents who are conservative,
Mhm.
they're just
Oh, right.
conservative.
You don't. That's who they are.
There's
Yeah.
no, it's who they are. You cannot change them. And my mother, I guess you could look at it just that way, that she was just a very conservative woman. And she was rebellious in her own way. She was very smart, but she's fundamentally conservative.
Do you have a photograph of her on your website at all or anywhere? Do you have any
I
photos?
don't. I guess I could put one up, I guess I'm not trying
Yeah.
to, I don't want her to feel any more hurt.
Oh,
Because
right.
I mean,
Of course.
I feel like I feel like I don't need to make her any more exposed than she already is.
Right. Right.
And it is still, I mean, this is still a fictionalized character. I mean, you talk about my conversations with her and how she answers, but she's dead. Those
Yeah,
conversations
that's
are
right.
all made up,
That's
they are what I think that she would say, but they are a guess finally. And so there's a little humility there too. I don't know if you've read Ian McEwan's new book, What We Could Know, but the
Yes.
upshot of that book is we don't know anything about the past.
No, I know it changes.
We can guess, but we
Yes.
could be very, very wrong. And
That's true.
and I think in this too, so this is an educated guess. It is my guess. I think I'm probably right, but in deference, there's a little humility in me that says, I think I'm probably right, but I could be wrong.
Well, you said something too about how you're a writer who writes fiction to find what's true. I'm paraphrasing, I forget what it was, but that's sort of what it is. Like you're getting at the truth. You actually have some questions here. Some of these questions you already answered, but I'm going to ask them anyway so people feel included. Renee asked, did you include some of the letters in your novel? I think you said yes. Some of them you did?
Absolutely.
Okay. Renee also asked, what did your mother think of you becoming a writer? I don't think she knew that yet, did she? Or did she?
My mother, absolutely knew that I'd become a writer, and she very much disapproved. I mean, she was completely unalterably opposed.
Did she think you were going to go back to med school?
No, I think she gave up on that idea, but she was very relieved when I married somebody who was kind of, a more traditionally successful type guy, and she's very relieved that I didn't marry another writer. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
That would have been the worst.
I have two more questions for you. These questions actually say more about, no. Before these questions, I have one more. What's your writing life like? Do you write plots out on butcher block paper? Are they always in your head? Do you just sit down and figure things out, or do you outline?
I do not outline. Sometimes if something seems to me, I'm losing my narrative drive. I might plot all the events out to sort of see kind of like what went wrong. Like it's but it's more troubleshooting. I don't plan ahead.
Right.
It's more like I think that something is wrong, and could I fix it? And I write. I'm very lucky. I have a house in Vermont, and when I'm there, I kind of write all day. I get up, I do some yoga. I can't be up there as much as I'd like, but when I'm there, I do some yoga. I write. In the afternoon, I take a break, get some exercise, and I write some more. And that's pretty much what I do. And I like to work like that. I'm not the 9 to 5 type, you know. I
Oh,
love
no,
to
no, no. You'd be terrible as a
well
lawyer.
done. Yeah, I'd be terrible.
So here's the question that says more about me than anybody. What beside what's going on in America right now is obsessing you now, and why?
Oh, besides what's going on in America, is there
Yeah.
anything else? Oh my God.
Is there anything that's obsessing you that's working its way into a novel?
You know, it's funny, but I can't think of anything right now. I think that I am actually quite preoccupied with our political situation.
It's
Very,
unbelievable.
I
It's
am
unbelievable.
I'm very, very preoccupied. And between that and pub, which I have to tell you is 24/7. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I think I'm mostly preoccupied by things like, you know, just trying to reassure various interlocutors that they don't need to prepare their questions, you know, ahead of time.
That's good. That's good to know.
I just feel like please don't. At least I'm mostly preoccupied with telling them, please don't put so much time and effort into it. I know you have a lot of work of your own to do.
That's lovely.
It's very good of you to do this, but please don't let it take over your life. It's just an event, and it will be fine.
Oh my God, that's such a lovely thing to say. So I want to show this. I love the cover. I love the goose. That's like so
they
wonderful.
did an incredible
They did
job.
an incredible job. Of course, the cover. As soon as people say, "What are you reading?" and I would say, "Oh, Bad Bad Girl," before it came out, because I had the galley. Of course, people would say, "Oh, that's such a great title," and it is. It is, because not only does it make you laugh, but when you read the book, you feel like your heart. It's just your heart just goes out. And you know what? I just looked at this cover and I had noticed there are 2 geese. For the longest time, I thought it was just one, which makes it even better. So anyway, everybody
I don't
out
know if
there.
you saw on the spine of the hardcover too. Oh, I don't have one, damn it.
Oh, is there on this?
Oh, on the spine of the hardcover. They have the way that the goose is knocking the eye, the eye out of girl.
Oh my God, that's so great.
On the hardcover on the spine, the goose is knocking the O out of Knopf.
Oh, that's so great. That's so great.
It just did a spectacular job.
So I want to tell everybody out there, go to your favorite indie bookstore, support your community, support the bookstore. There's a link right in here for bookshop.org where you can get this book and all of Gish Jen's books. I'm going to say goodbye to all of you except for Gish and tell you all thank you so much for coming and for the questions and for listening. This particular interview is going to be it's going to live on the Mighty Blaze YouTube forever, and that's where we actually get more viewers because people have time and they want to see it. And it will be an audio podcast in a few months, so it's sort of the gift that keeps on giving. So goodbye to everybody. And thank you so much, Gish Jen. You stay on, and I will see everybody else probably maybe tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah. And thank you, Caroline. This is such a wonderful, wonderful thing that you do.
You are so welcome. You stay put. Okay.